Hello, a very warm welcome, and you need it if you're in Johannesburg because it has been chilly lately. Smack in the middle of winter. Winter solstice has just passed here in South Africa, perhaps summer solstice if you're in the northern hemisphere. Lucky you, you're enjoying the long days and beautiful warm weather. Well, we're experiencing just the opposite, very short days. Nice to welcome you to this edition of the Coaching Hour. I'm Paul Rotherham. I'm joined, as always, by Mareka. Mary, unfortunately, can't be with us today. Shame, she had a bit of a fall and she's got a fractured ankle, which has rendered her pretty much immobile. So it's been very difficult for her to do things and get around. It only happened a couple of days ago, so she's still enjoying bed rest. Well, I use the term enjoying loosely. I don't think she's enjoying that at all. But yeah, we're thinking of you, Mary. Get better soon. And I'm sure you will be missed on this podcast. Today, though, we've got a wonderful guest, a man who is no stranger to the Coaching Hour, brought to you, as you know, in partnership with Coaches Network South Africa. Who's joining us today, Mareka?
Yes, Paul, thank you so much. As you said, a regular guest that we have again today is Willie Snyman. He is a life, business, and financial coach. And we're going to talk about something very interesting. He had a trip recently to China, and I actually saw his post on LinkedIn, his article that he wrote, China Through the Eyes of a Leadership Coach. And then I asked him to join us so that we can talk about this topic. It seems very interesting. Hi, Willie. Nice to have you again.
Yes, thank you. Really looking forward to discussion, which I think would be will be inspiring and entertaining and to learning from.
Absolutely. So, Willie, tell us a bit, what did you do in China? It wasn't just a holiday that you've had, and what impressed you about going there?
Yeah, we all, grow up with perceptions about China. I remember in lower grade, the teacher told us if all the Chinese are hopping up and down, the earth will sort of shatter a bit. It's and I know it's a lot of people. I think a country of 1.4, more than 1.4 billion. And so it can carry on. And you grew up with perceptions, and I never thought I would go to China. And it just happened to be that a friend of mine, Professor Dries Veldhuizen, he's actually a well-known Geo-Africa in Geo-Africa, he's an academic. And he's currently associated with the University of South Africa and as an independent consultant. And he is working on a learning thing like self-adaptive learning. It's a concept that he's sort of now thinking of as an academic. He's also a mediator. And he said, he's exploring this. He would like to explore this also in China. Do I want to go with him? That's actually how it started. And I think about it and say, "Ach, yeah, okay, let's go together." So me and Professor Dries Veldhuizen, we went together to China. And of course, for me, then I wasn't there to go for anything about politics or something like that, not at all. For me, it was like going there and look it from the people side as a coach. And I looked it as an opportunity for me to find out how do they look in terms of leadership ability. What is the culture there? What is the individual and collective responsibilities of people? How do they do business? How it's possible that they can be such a big country and everything is working? And that is the one thing that if I come back now and I say, what did I learn? I say, everything's working. You know, it's amazing. Everything's working. I mean, I haven't seen potholes. The robots are working. Everybody is like know what they need to do. It's quite a rules-based society. Everybody know what they need to do. And there's a type of a we culture and not an I culture mostly. So for me, it was quite an eye-opener in terms of my perceptions I had of China.
Mm.
And they're huge, they're huge. I mean, and what they got right. My one niece went there like 20 years ago, and now she compared what she saw, what I saw. And those years, 20 years, it wasn't like this. Everything didn't really work. In a way it did, but it wasn't like that advanced. So what they got right now is like really in terms of technology, that they are really there. You know, if you look at the infrastructure, it's amazing to see everything is working. I mean, In it's like 20 million people in this town, city, and 22 in that, it's huge. And I've traveled with a bullet train, it's like 350 kilometers an hour. I've traveled more than 6,000 kilometers to and fro, and with various places like Khufu and Shanghai and Shanghai, and a few others, and also Beijing. And it's everything's working. If, for example, at the train station, we're in Pretoria, we in South Africa, got train, you've got only Marlborough, you have to hop off. And there you've got hundreds of places to hop off in the city. Huge infrastructure. I tell you now, and every 2-3 minutes there's trains. So like 500-600 trains, all the time, every 2-3 minutes. So if there's load shedding for 5 minutes, it will be chaotic. There is no load shedding. Everything is working. So that is the amazing what I got there. I mean, their employment rate, officially at least, is like 5% unemployment rate. Maybe if you go to the so-called platteland, maybe it's a bit higher, but at least official figures compared to other official figures of other countries is 5.2%. It's not 50%. So that's the thing. And it's quite amazing to have experienced that, as a South African. Of course, the language is an issue. I mean, it's Mandarin, it's, let's say, Chinese, and Google Translate helped me a lot, and I had got conversations with Google Translate, and you sort of get used to it. So I think there's definitely potential to work closer to China. I mean, it's part of BRICS, it's part of South Africa. We are non-aligned, but I mean, we are also one foot in the door, strong with BRICS. So what amazed me, to answer your question, is really like what I saw there is I would say long-term thinking. For example, in one of the museums, the military museum, for example. It's known there, you look at the museum, you're there, and then in one of the writings is, how will our military look in 2035? And then they spell it out. How will our military look in 2055? And they spell it out. So it's the long-term thinking, that impressed me, really impressed me.
They know where they're going. They've got a plan.
They've got a plan, and they got it right to move this, huge country with systems and technology and proud to where they are. So they are advanced. They also have pride in public spaces. What I mean by that is they are very much cleaning. It's always cleaners. There's cleaners all the time. That is something. And another thing also, you don't see policemen. You don't see it. You see a lot of cameras, though. I mean, everywhere there's cameras. So if you enter a place, there's somebody looking at you, all right? But it didn't. I feel safe. I cannot now just walk into midtown of Johannesburg and feel safe, but I could walk there in Shanghai safe. A lot of people. I mean, it's masses, okay? But I felt safe. And also some of the museums, the Science Technology Museum, also there, people will come with their backpacks or tas or whatever, and they will place it there around. Nobody's stealing it, just put it there. I wouldn't do it in South Africa and even in mainland. I wouldn't do that. So there's like that culture of togetherness that really, I think it's, and also the willingness to invest into capability. I think they are technology advanced, all the new things. What about that? What about, hotels, for example, they're really there. A lot of these machines that walk around and do the self-cleaning, and then this machine will go to there and plug himself in to get electricity again. And another thing is discipline. Wow, they are very disciplined and interesting. That you have to do what they say. Because a lot of people, they need some sort of a bit of a discipline. If you go into a bus, for example, a travel bus, it was myself then, the first thing the speaker then in front will say to everybody is that, good morning, everybody. They speak Chinese, and then, of course, they speak English, which you have to concentrate to understand. And then it's like, please behave. you are in China, and here we treat people with respect, no shouting. I mean, it's like, dis amper soos groot mense met kinders, you behave. But I mean, I understand that. I mean, it's like a huge, a lot of people, and there need to be structures into place. Otherwise, it will be chaos. But yeah,
I've
I think
often
that's just
said,
a quick summary.
uh,
Yeah,
it's wonderful to hear, and I've often said in conversations with people who go to Australia, they leave South Africa, and it takes them literally weeks to adjust their behavior, because in South Africa there are little things that you can get away with. So you can go to the pub and have a couple of beers and drive home.
yeah,
You can, perhaps cheat the books slightly on your business, or pay somebody to look the other way while you're doing something that you shouldn't quite be doing. And
yeah,
there are upstanding people in this country because of our culture and how we've become. There are upstanding people, if I can use that word, who
yeah,
do that because it's a
yeah,
means of survival in Africa. And then they
yeah,
go to Australia and they get pulled over at the side of the road because they were doing 2 kilometers an hour more than they should have been on a section of road. And
yeah,
there and then you find, in some cases, you can have your car impounded. If you drive under the influence, it's a little bit like how it is in much of Europe and the UK. The
yeah,
consequences are massive. It's not just, here's a couple of banknotes in my ID that I pass out the window to the traffic officer. And I think
yeah,
one of the things that you've touched on is discipline has come about as a result of consequence. There is a
yeah, yeah,
consequence. And while that can be unpleasant to some who
yeah,
do like a couple of beers after work because, hey, it's harmless, I'm not doing anything wrong,
yeah,
that same mentality is the mentality in these first world countries, if we can call them that, even though some of them on paper are not. That
yeah,
mentality is what's keeping you safe, is what
yeah,
is allowing you to go and sit on the beach with your
yeah,
sunglasses, phone, wallet, and ID on your
yeah,
lounger, and you leave it there for the entire day and it doesn't get touched. Those are
true.
those are the pros to living like that, where there are also cons and negatives. I mean, many people have told me that they hate the nanny state mentality. And it's the same in the UK, where you literally cannot go anywhere without
Yeah,
being on camera. But it's
yeah,
that sort of technology that keeps you safe. I think so. Anyway, you've just said yourself, Billy, it's not as if the place is swarming with police.
no,
People just do what they need to do and behave how they
yeah,
should, because they
yeah,
know that if they don't, there are consequences. And not that I think this podcast is about a comparison, because we'll
not
be
at
here
all.
all day if we're trying to compare China with
Yeah,
South Africa. But it
yeah.
is it is amazing to see. Other than technology, what do you think it is that allowed them to get there? Because you yourself said a few minutes ago, 20 years ago, you would have gone to China and thought, gosh, you can't pay me enough to live here. Now, I think living in China is a viable and almost exciting proposition.
Yeah, I think what happened, my perspective I have on it, and I thought about it. I think it's culture. So basically, they got it right to have that vision where we are going. Okay, it is known, so it's communicated properly. It seems to me, because I mean everybody is doing their thing. Thirdly, the fact that quality minded, but we also learned that from the Japanese, that constant, doing it better, doing it better, doing better. And very importantly, maybe for me, that was, I think, the thing in terms of culture is like a we culture, not an I culture. And I think the answer is not to copy them, is to learn from them. Maybe in the so-called West we are too much on the I culture and too less on the we culture. And I'll in a while, if there's time, I'll just show you like a couple of slides and photos. But one picture there that I'll show you later is that, for example, my own experience at the one hotel, the receptionist is struggling with a difficult client. So in an I culture, I would say, she needs to sort it out now. But there, it's like when the other participants, the helping staff, saw that this lady is struggling a bit with a client. It's like a natural, how can we help you? Help you help the customer. Then also listening, but not intruding, but listening. And then they will go to this lady and say, no, you must press there, you must do that. It's like a natural we that I saw. And I saw that in more than one place. Also, for example, myself, when I and Professor Dries Veldhuizen, when we struggled with a Didi, it's called Uber, there is a Didi. We looked a bit lost in one of the streets, and it's like we felt safe. A lot of cars and people around us, but then from the public there, the Chinese, I didn't see a lot of Westerners, by the way. It was just basically me and him and very few other people. They like come to help us, and then they speak Chinese, and then of course we've got Google Translate, and then they realized we struggle with a taxi, and then very naturally they stop certain cars and say no, wait, stop, and they shout, they're very loud, and we got helped. So that for me it was quite nice. Also in hotels, for example, that are you okay, thingy as a true tourist. In Hong Kong it was different. So in mainland China, it was when you go into hotels, there's 3 or 4 or 5 bottles water to make you feel welcome. If you go to buy something in the shops, they're very easy to say, try this. It's very giving, right? Whereas Hong Kong, for example, of course, Hong Kong is still now part of China the last 10, 20 years, but still not really, because they were 100 years under the British rule. If you get into Hong Kong, they speak English. Still retain the Chinese language, but mostly if you get there, you speak English. And there in a hotel, there's no water. So you pay for the water. So it's like a different experience. And I felt a bit less safe in Hong Kong than I felt in Shanghai, the previous Peking, yeah. So
That's
yeah,
often the case, though, with big cities, isn't it? If you go to the UK and you go to London or Birmingham or Manchester, any one of the big cities, I think
yeah,
generally the things that you are saying, you could say exactly the same about that. Just like if you come to Johannesburg or Cape Town or Durban and then go out into the Platteland in South Africa, you could take somebody to certain remote areas of our country and also experience that wholesome goodness that I think is
yeah,
often taking you back almost. You feel like you're being taken back in
yeah,
history. And it's the same in England. You'll have a totally different experience in the Cotswolds or in the south of England in one of their little holiday seaside
true,
villages. And my
true.
comment there, I think Mareka also wanted to ask something. My comment just briefly is that not what Ubuntu is here in South Africa? That whole I am because we are philosophy, or do you think we haven't got that right yet?
I think we did not really have it totally right in South Africa. It's just my own view. I think what I saw there is, you can say, a bit of a Ubuntu culture, like I am because we are, that concept. But my niece that was in China a long time ago said, that maybe in South Africa, Ubuntu became maybe in some areas where the nanny is looking after the kids and that's it. Uh,
Mm.
so that's not. I think we can still learn from China, and I think what we need to. I think in South Africa in general, we got a bit of. It is now what it is. It's as if nothing is working. We have potholes and we live with, and we start doing it correctly. I think we can learn from China again to say that let's get appropriate, respectful discipline back. And let's apply that. It's easy to talk we language, but I mean, to implement it is something different. And then I think we need to have a balance. I think China communism maybe worked for China. I'm not saying that we now need to become communists. That's not what I'm saying. I say, what can we learn from them? And maybe there should be more a balancing of the I and the we culture. Because if the moment you go too much to that culture, then it's very individualistic, and maybe in America, for example, there's a lot of rich people, a lot of middle class, and a lot of poor people also, but there's very, very rich people. Whereas you swing to the other side, I'm not sure how it's Russia. I didn't think communism worked there very well, but anyway, so maybe that I'm not a politician. But if you swivel too much to the we culture, maybe that's also not the thing. I think it's a balancing thing of I and we. Yeah, that's the way I saw it.
No, I agree. I think we know about the Ubuntu concept. And to be
Mm,
honest, there's still a lot of Afrikaans speaking people that doesn't know what Ubuntu is. So I think that
mm,
is we have the concept, but do we embody it? Do we really, do we
yeah,
live it? Like you say, it's easy to complain about the rubble in the street, but do I go out and pick it up myself? That's
yeah, yeah.
that pride type of thing. But Willie, you said you had some slides for us. Do you want to show us
Yeah, I'll quite happy to show
some?
them, because I'll just quickly go through them.
Yes.
Then you will let me go there, slide, and then I think there, I think you can see my doggy.
Yeah.
And then I go to
Got a cute smile.
They say that eventually you start looking like your pet, hey, Willie?
Yeah, the sad thing, Paul, Sophie was 11 years, so part of my life as my true companion. And unfortunately, July 31st last year, she passed on.
Oh,
And one way of my grieving is to actually write a book about her that I will launch on the 31st of July this year, next month.
oh wow.
And it's
That's
actually a
a
coaching
story on
book.
its own.
Yeah, it's a coaching book, and in that, it's like what the effect of this companionship with Sophie had on my life in terms of a deeper understanding of connection and caring, and the wee things we actually talk about in a way. So yeah, it's an ebook that I will just do through Amazon, and I'm actually launched my book at the restaurant Anzel's here in Morletta. If you want to join. So it's an ebook at this stage, but I will have some hard copies as well just to can hand out and sign. It's a way I deal with my grief.
Yes,
I
Mm.
also
yes.
have a Facebook page of Sophie's Quiet Wisdom. Yeah. Anyway,
Oh.
so to come back to my slides, can you see my slides there? I think
Yes,
Yep,
we
you
can.
in a hat. Yes. Is
yeah,
that
that's me. And,
Great
and
Wall, hey?
behind me is the Great China Wall. It's huge. I think it's like just like thousands of kilometers, eh? There's give you an idea of the speed trains. There's the typical train stations. I mean, there are quite a number of these stations. And they give you, if you look at those high-rise buildings, like I call it beehives, a lot of people living there, a lot. And you can see it's clean streets. This is the city center, right? A lot of people in the trains, that is everywhere, really everywhere. The scale is huge. And then there's a picture of the railway station. If you can just see that structure there, but where my browser is, you can see there's a lot of Marlboroughs to go through. It's
It
huge.
looks like the London Underground, but on steroids.
You can say that, but there are many Londons, there. It's like huge cities, eh? And then, of course, here is a nice picture, me and Professor Veldhuizen with the people there. They were so great and so helpful, and you feel like that loving thing, as the we. It was just such nice. Everybody they're doing what they need to do, but they're there to support each other, and that was really something that I came home with. There's the
Are they
language.
welcoming of foreigners, Villy? Are they open to the fact that, oh, here's somebody who isn't from our country? I suppose they
Yes.
recognize that tourism is built on that, but other than the hotel people, is it nice for them to see foreigners or
Yeah,
strangers?
I'll show my next slide soon. I want to answer you on that one. Thank you for that.
Okay.
And then basically also here, this is my coaching experiment where I had the GM of one of the hotels in Beijing, and I talked to her and I asked her a question, and then, of course, then the answer you put it, you talk on your Google Translate, and then it translates in Chinese. Then she will talk in Chinese, and then it translates to English. And ask her, for example, are you happy? And how happy are you? And she was a bit taken aback and said to me, but oh, what a strange question to ask. Okay. And then she was thinking a bit, and then her answer was, then she talked about the family at home and what she wants to achieve with this hotel and what she's doing here, and it's going with all the people and blah blah blah. And then she said, of course I'm happy. But the thinking wasn't her. It was that thinking of the we. Interesting. And then she gave herself a 7 out of 10 for happiness, which I think is good. Most South Africans give themselves a 5 to 6 out of 10. Interesting in this case.
Hmm.
And of course, I had a couple of these discussions. There's the picture of myself and Dries. And then this lady, her name is Lucky. And when she saw us as a foreigner, so interesting, when people see us, we look different, and people looked at us. And they like to be taken photos of us, actually, and be taken with. And we had a couple of photos where people come to us and say, can they take a picture of us? That was for me very interesting.
I think I
And
know why that is, Villy, because if you're listening to this, you cannot see the picture, but I'm going to tell you, you guys look like twins in that photograph. If I walked past you and didn't know you, that honestly, the professor looks like your twin brother. Has nobody ever told you that? The same
nobody.
glasses, The same facial hair. Do you see it, Marika? At least brothers.
I see it.
Honestly, like
Interesting.
if I saw you quickly passing in the street, I would think you were twins.
Interesting. But anyway, I think it was maybe our beards as well, and we're bigger. And this Lucky, she works she's got businesses in China, and she approached us at the station, said, take a picture, and said, we must make contact because there's a lot of business we can do in South Africa with you. And she's part of UNESCO. And so I've got an email, I've got a number, everything. So I haven't made contact yet, but I'm going to do that. And also, what I'm going to do is, like last year, Marika knew about that, and I will tell you later about that, Marika, more. Every year, it's a third year now, I have like a big picture conference. When I say, taking everything we can, what is the big picture? What really matters? And last year was quite a success. I'm going to do it again, but now I'm going to have like a so-called ambassadors table there, where I'm going to invite people from China here in South Africa. It's like the chambers of commerces. If there's China, there's Pakistan, India, whatever. I'm going to have like a table there for this. They call it the international table, because I realized in China that there's business opportunities, and there's business opportunities in Africa. I've also met the Algerian ambassador here in South Africa a while ago, and he said to me that we must talk. There's business we must do with Algeria. So I think South Africans, we must start thinking globally, act locally, and act and think globally. But that's a discussion for another time. So what that makes these people happy is they work together, and also here, there's beautiful places, there's scenes, and then of course here's the middle picture. Here is the lady there in front where she tells us, behave in this bus and blah blah blah. If there's time, Marika can maybe show a video of two in a while. And there's a typical how it look at certain of those towns. And then here, the coaching aspect, that whole continuous thingy of the constant learning, constant learning, constant learning. You behave, you do your job, but interesting at one of the places, there was like a plate of chicken food, and we just took actually one, and one of the ladies there said, no, don't take. And then the manager saw it, said, no, it's okay. And then eventually we had good food there. So basically, you can immediately see there's respect for the manager, do their job, and then when the manager says no, it's okay, then everything is okay again. There's no like in feeling awkward about it. Yeah. And then there's again these two ladies. Of course, we like to be taken with these two beautiful ladies there. Ask us to take a photo of them. But this was a cultural site. That is why they had the typical cultural thing there. The robot's interesting. Again, everything is working. It's like the robots are not like our robots, like this huge robots. But there's also sound. So you stand in front of the street and then you hear tuck, 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 tuck sound. Then it means it's red. And then the moment it goes green, it's tuck, 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 tuck. Then you have to walk. Interesting. So there's an added feature there. And then there's a picture of a lot of these buildings, a lot. And then here, what you can learn is, again, it's clean cities, they're working together, the parks are clean. There's some, and they also from sustainability, you've got these places there you put the plastics and there you put the other stuff. And there's again the bus and so on, So for me, really, I like China. I learned a lot. It's beautiful places. And I want to read that for you. I think I've written that somewhere. Let me just see if I can find it. What they say there. Yeah, I've got it. What's standing there, that was at one of the science technology museums. And listen to this, how beautiful it is. When code weaves new worlds and machines touch the edge of the unknown, we are both creators and companions. The future lies at our feet. That is what he's saying there in Chinese, Yeah. And then, of course, you see all the advances. It's really like great, It's like great. So, I think that is it then, Marika. I think for me, it was really like a wow.
Willie, I'm going to ask this.
Sure.
because I think this is like watching your uncle who's just come back from a holiday and he's showing the family what he did and where he went, and it's all
Yeah.
super exciting, and you'd love to go back and you can't wait to do even more. But is there anything that you were left feeling a little unhappy or unimpressed or disappointed with? And again, I'm not asking this in the context of
Yeah.
comparison with South Africa because I don't think that would be fair. But was there anything that didn't meet your expectations?
Not really, but one thing that I also think of is if you are in wherever you walk, everybody and it's actually also something everybody walks with a cell phone, but in front of them, and constantly a lot more than here.
Mm.
And then when you stand in the train and you sort of look what they're looking at, they're looking movies, movies like
What? While
movies.
they're walking?
While they're walking and in the train, they are constantly, a lot of them is just walking with their cell phones.
Am
So
I
I
right
don't, I don't
in
know what
thinking,
will happen to them in 10 years from now, that maybe it takes away maybe that people connection, but they are really on their cell phones all the time. Huge.
was it China or Japan where they actually introduced designated walking lanes for people on phones because people
No,
were walking
I haven't
into
seen
things?
it.
They were walking into poles, walking into each other, and they
No, no,
genuinely
not
they
yet.
had a cell phone lane. Did you see any of
Sure.
that?
No, no, not at all. Everybody walk, doesn't matter where they walk with their cell phones. But I think they sort of learned the peripheral vision to see everybody because they don't bump into each other.
Yeah.
But they're a lot on their phones. That is a fact. So that's one thing I saw. Uh, the rest, but the impressed side, of course, as I mentioned, is the cleanliness and the working together. But I haven't seen there any unhappiness or something. I haven't been at the Platteland. I haven't been there. I also haven't been in this huge beehive buildings, which maybe next time I would visit as well. And also, there are really there's no South Africans there. I mean, I visited a lot of places. I don't see, it was like awkward to feel so just you and there's no Westerners, I would say. Very
Mhm.
few, 1 in 100, even less. Not that it worried me, it's just that maybe China is an opportunity, and the language is something that we need to work out with them. But I don't think China is this country that we should be afraid of. I mean, I don't see China going into war and attacking another country, and they don't have that mindset. They are strategic in nature, strategic in long term. What is in there, and they do respect their leaders. I mean, they also had, remember that are 6,000 years old, eh?
Yeah.
6,000 years, and not like 200 to 300 years that like us or America, not even 1,000 years. They are 600 years old. They had their wars, they had their various dynasties. They had also under Mao Zedong, quite heavy-handedness.
Yeah.
And then when Deng comes in, Deeping, and now Xi Jinping, there's a lot of photos of him. They respect him as a leader, and he comes across as like a goeie pa, like a good fatherly figure, and they really respect him, and it's nice to see that. They're proud. They're a proud nation. They're a proud nation. Yeah.
There's so much I think that we could chat to you about, Billy. Honestly, I think this could become a 2-hour podcast, which unfortunately we don't have the time for. If I may,
Yeah.
one last quick question
Yeah.
from me before Mareka jumps in as well, perhaps. Is there a mindset of entrepreneurship, or is it largely go and get a job? Did you
No, no, it's
experience?
entrepreneurship. No, that's plain clear. If you walk in the streets, a little bit away from the midtown, there are a lot of small businesses. It's there. It's family orientated as well. Also interesting, that actually maybe disappointing a bit, but that's how it is there. There's a lot of people, and they say small shoppies out of the town are not like glamorous or, I mean, it's just basically walk into a pharmacy. That's things just stashed around there. I think they can learn from us how to market maybe better in terms of the look and feel within certain shoppies. The shoppies are just, a lot of stuff. So yeah, so that I found there, but entrepreneurs, oh, absolutely, they sell, they buy and sell, and a lot of food places, because if you think of a city, there's a lot of people that needs to eat. So downstairs on the streets, there's a lot of food places. So all the streets are like just a lot of food.
Yeah.
But clean
Sounds
as
like,
well, clean. It's clean. They are clean, and they're a clean nation. I grew up with the Chinese are not clean people. Rubbish. They are clean people. They are hygienic. They are
Yeah.
future thinking. They think of their health and they are technology advanced. Absolutely.
hmm,
Yeah.
sure.
Interesting. Now, like you said, Paul, I think there's a lot that we can actually talk about. And the one thing that stands out for me is how hard they work. I mean, I know one of my daughter's friends, she's 12 years old. Um, her there's one friend that comes from China every year for 3 months to come to their school and experience South Africa. And it's more of a break for her daughter than anything else because when they go back to China, they have school until what time in the afternoons? They have winter school, summer school. There's no school holidays. There's no such thing. They work. After school, the mother gives her extra work to do. So they work very, very hard. And I think that's also another type of culture of really dedication and hard work that we can learn from.
That creates happiness for them as well because I think it creates meaning and purpose, I would say. I think that that plays a role and they achieve things. And with this collective being proud of I'm Chinese and our country is working, we are not at war with the world. I think
Mhm.
that also in the psyche, they are not at war with the world.
Mm.
And I think on a
Mhm.
personal level, you're not fighting for survival like we are in South Africa. And again, this podcast is not about comparing the two countries, but I get a real sense in South Africa, even among middle class white people, let's refer to that segment, that it's every day is pushing to survive. It really is.
Yeah, they are
And
not
yeah,
a
it was
survival mode. You're right. I didn't pick that up. And I think maybe, if we can collectively get a message out there for South Africans in terms of, we need to find ways to move from survival to thriving.
yeah.
And it's so easy to say it, but part of that is back to basics in terms of more discipline. There are things that's right and wrong. You don't
Mm.
throw things out of the window. You worry when the potholes start developing. And
Yes.
then important, let's communicate collective, not judging people. So we can find richness in diversity. And I deal with that as a coach a lot. There is a lot of richness in diversity as long as we communicate to
Mm.
learn from each other.
Just one final question, sorry,
Yeah.
before we. Um, Something else that I just thought of. Are they also so heavily focused on wellness and stress management? Because if I'm thinking how often I do stress management, burnout prevention workshops, and those type of things, you would think, they should be burned out because they work super hard and they're very dedicated. Um, there's a huge difference in
I
that.
I didn't see a lot of that. I think they are very much influenced by Confucianism as an ideology. And Confucianism has a lot to do with interesting what I do in my coaching with positive intelligence, where it automatically off is you think like what is the gift and opportunity in reality around you. And I
Mm.
think that suppressed a bit of the anxiety. So of course they're human beings. Of course they
Yeah.
also have anxiety, etc. But I didn't find that what you've asked now specifically. It seems to me that Confucianism as like an ideology, philosophy, not a religion, sort of pacifies that entity what you're talking about, the stress. I didn't see that.
Interesting.
And I think the support is from the weak culture, that there's a feeling of there is support, and I need to, in a this rules-based society, do what I have to do, and then there I found my meaning and purpose. I'm not too worried about me, have stressed, whatever. That's what I
Yes.
experienced there.
Interesting.
Vili, you and I are going to connect because I have some more questions that
Sure.
could be perfectly suited for this podcast, but we really don't want to go on longer than we should.
Yeah.
I think it would actually, Mareka, be fantastic to perhaps have another session with Vili about this because it really is insightful. And I think as much as South Africans are known for traveling, China, as you said, it's strange. If you had to give me a world map and say, here, put your finger on a country you'd like to visit, I don't think China would be in my top 5 or probably even my top 10. It just wouldn't occur to me unless I had a specific means or way or reason, at least, sorry, for wanting to go. Maybe business. I've got a number of friends who've been there on business. Labor, as you know, is very affordable there, and you could have things made and designed and manufactured. But beyond that, it wouldn't be somewhere, until today, to be honest, it wouldn't have been somewhere that I would have even thought about. And I'm sure Mareka feels the same. I'm now sitting here with an inquiring mind thinking, maybe it's worth visiting.
Yes.
I think what I like what you say, Paul, is I think if we approach life or other countries with a curious mindset, and not that I'm right or wrong, if you can have a curious mindset. And what surprised me as well, because in my coaching, I've got certain toolkits I use, like the 5 A's I use, I think Mareka know them. And I saw that with China. So first of all, the first A is you have to be aware. So there's awareness I saw, right? The second A is acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean you agree with everything, but there's certain things you have to accept. And otherwise you're stuck. And then thirdly, appreciation. So what do you appreciate about life and what is the bigger picture? What matters? Food, I must have a work, blah, blah, blah. And very important, what is the appropriate action I need to take? And the last A is, do I have support, assistance? And that is more or less my methodology in my coaching. And if you work on that, and I was so positively surprised to saw that in China, not in South Africa as a way. So what influenced me very positively about China is the bit of a shifting from the I to the we, and a bit of the to that Mareka mentioned about. So yeah, so I'm definitely I'm glad for this podcast. I think it's a message we can spread. Let's be curious, and it all starts with mindset. That's the bottom line.
Willie Snyman, that's the perfect place to end today's podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your experiences, your adventure, and your photographs. We appreciate that. If perhaps you were listening to this podcast, not watching it, then I suggest you do hop on to our YouTube channel or Facebook page, and you can actually watch this video, and you'll be able to see the photographs that Willie was chatting about. I mean, it's just extraordinary. One of their sort of smaller bus depots looks like OR Tambo Airport, or the train depot, I think it was, that you showed us. I mean, it's staggering. I guess when you've got a population of well over 1 billion people, it makes sense. It is a numbers game. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you to you, wherever you are in the world, for being a part of what we do here with Coaches Network South Africa. Mareka, thanks for setting this up. Mareka is the hard worker behind the scenes who sets up our guests and interviews and manages all of that. And we appreciate you for that, Mareka. Thank you. From myself, Paul Rotherham, bye for now. And we'll look forward to your company on the next one.